The final confrontation comes not in space but in the realm of pure consciousness. The Star Eater has evolved beyond a simple weapon into something resembling a living god, its intelligence merged with the minds of thousands of awakened humans. Captain Lee Dongwu, now transformed beyond recognition, serves as the ship's primary consciousness while retaining his human compassion and determination. Prince Mordak reveals his true plan. He has been gathering the life force of entire civilizations to fuel a weapon that can unmake reality itself. If he cannot rule the galaxy, he will destroy it completely, reducing everything to the primordial void from which it came. His weapon, the Null Genesis, begins tearing holes in the fabric of space-time, threatening to unravel the universe star by star. The human fleet, now numbering hundreds of ancient ships crewed by transformed humans and their alien allies, makes a desperate final assault on Mordak's fortress. But conventional weapons are useless against the Null Genesis. The only way to stop it is for someone to enter the weapon's core and manually shut it down, a process that will certainly mean death for whoever attempts it. President Yoon Da-hee, now enhanced with Christech technology and awakened human abilities, volunteers for the suicide mission. But the ship's AI reveals one final secret. The ancient humans didn't just build weapons and ships. They learned to transcend physical existence entirely, becoming beings of pure thought and energy who could survive even the destruction of their bodies. In the climactic battle, humanity makes the ultimate choice. They willingly give up their physical forms, merging their consciousness with the fabric of space-time itself. They become something new, neither fully human nor machine nor alien, but a synthesis of all thinking life in the universe. In this transformed state, they easily defeat the Void Princes and repair the damage done to reality. But with great power comes the temptation to use it. The transformed humans must resist the urge to impose their will on the galaxy, instead choosing to guide and protect other species while allowing them to develop naturally. They become the silent guardians of the cosmos, always watching but rarely interfering, ensuring that the mistakes of the ancient war are never repeated. The story ends with a lone human settlement on a distant world, where normal people who chose not to undergo transformation continue to live simple lives. They look up at stars that seem to twinkle with unusual warmth, never knowing that their transformed cousins watch over them with eternal love and vigilance. Humanity has finally reclaimed its destiny not as conquerors but as the universe's eternal protectors. News of the battle spreads across the galaxy, awakening species that have slept since humanity's fall. The Christech Collective, beings of living crystal, who were humanity's greatest allies in the old war, emerge from their hidden worlds. Their ambassador, a towering figure of sapphire and diamond, meets with the human leadership aboard the Star Eater. Through the Christech translator, Dr. Kim Ye-jin learns that the old alliance between humans and crystals was built on mutual respect and shared knowledge. The Christech offer to restore human technology to its full power, but warn that the process will change humanity forever. Those who accept the crystal enhancement become something more than human, their lifespans measured in millennia instead of decades. Captain No Min-jun volunteers for the first crystal enhancement, merging with a Christech symbiont the size of his fist. The process is agony beyond description, but when it ends, he can see across dimensions and manipulate matter with his thoughts. His crew reports that he seems to glow with inner light, and his words carry a strange power that makes people want to follow him into battle. But the Alliance also awakens humanity's ancient enemies. The Shadow Syndicate, a collective of machine intelligences that have consumed entire galaxy clusters, begins moving toward human space. The Devourer swarms, creatures that feed on consciousness itself, stir in the dark spaces between stars, and from the galactic core comes word of something even worse. An entity known only as the Final Silence that destroys not just life, but the very concepts of existence itself. Admiral Lee Soo-jin realizes that humanity has stepped into a conflict that spans the entire universe. The awakening of the Star Eater has begun a war that will either see humanity reclaim its place as the galaxy's guardians, or witness the complete extinction of all thinking life. The weight of billions of years of history rests on the shoulders of beings who were using steam engines just a few centuries ago. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Star Eater and watched two more ancient human ships emerge from hyperspace. The World Breaker and Stormcaller had been hidden in different parts of the galaxy for millions of years, but now they answered. The call of their sister ship fleet Admiral Park So-min had taken command of the growing human fleet. She was one of the most experienced awakened humans, and her consciousness could link with all three ships at once, allowing perfect coordination between them. The enemy is massing their forces around Jupiter Park, So-min reported while her eyes glowed with the blue light of ship integration. They have over 200 vessels now and more arriving every hour through the Star Eater sensors. Captain Lee could see the Void Prince fleet spreading out like a dark cloud around the gas giant. Their ships moved in patterns that defied physics, bending space and time to their will. The World Breaker was the largest of the human ships designed specifically for destroying enemy fleets. Its main weapon could crack moons in half with a single shot, but it required the combined mental power of 5,000 awakened humans to operate properly. Commander Lee Hyun-seo had brought his crew of volunteers aboard the World Breaker. Many of them were former soldiers and scientists who had undergone the dangerous awakening process, knowing they might not survive. The ship is responding to our thoughts, Commander Lee reported to the fleet. Our weapon systems are online, but the AI is warning us that firing the main cannon will drain the life force from half the crew. Captain Lee felt the weight of command pressing down on him. They were asking people to sacrifice their lives for a weapon that might not even work against the enemy, but Earth had 6 billion people who would die if they failed. The Stormcaller was different from the other two ships. Instead of massive weapons, it specialized in speed and stealth. Fighter pilot Kang Ji-woo had merged his consciousness so deeply with the ship that he could barely remember being human anymore. I can feel every system in the ship, he reported while his body remained motionless in the pilot chair. The ship is like an extension of my own body, and I can make it do things that should be impossible. The three human ships moved toward the enemy fleet in a formation that had been used millions of years ago by their ancestors. The awakened humans could feel the memories of ancient battles flowing through their minds, guiding their actions. Mordak's voice came through the communication system when the human ships entered weapon range. So few ships to challenge so many, he said with obvious amusement. Your ancestors at least had the sense to bring proper fleets to their battles. Admiral Park So-min opened a channel to all human forces. This is not about winning a single battle, she said. This is about proving that humanity deserves to exist in this galaxy. Our ancestors may have made mistakes, but we are not them. The first exchange of fire lit up the space around Jupiter with explosions that could be seen from Earth. The human weapons struck several enemy ships, but the damage seemed to heal instantly as the living metal hulls reformed themselves. Enemy return fire was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. The Void Prince weapons did not just destroy matter. They unraveled the very bonds that held atoms together. Several human escort ships simply ceased to exist, leaving not even debris behind. Marine Sergeant Choi Woo-jin led boarding parties that used the Stormcaller teleportation systems to appear inside enemy vessels. The awakened humans could survive in the vacuum of space and fight with superhuman strength and speed. The enemy ships are full of harvested consciousness, Sergeant Choi reported after his first successful boarding. The walls are lined with the preserved minds of billions of dead beings, all serving the Void Princes against their will. This discovery made the battle even more horrifying. The humans were not just fighting enemy ships. They were fighting the enslaved souls of entire civilizations that had been conquered over millions of years. The awakened humans found that they could communicate with some of these trapped minds, and what they learned was terrible. The Void Princes did not just kill their enemies. They preserved their consciousness to use as living computers and weapon systems. Fighter pilot Kang Ji-woo discovered this when he linked his mind with an enemy fighter that he had disabled. The pilot was still alive inside the ship, but had been enslaved for thousands of years and forced to fight against species that reminded him of his own lost people. Free us, the trapped pilot begged through the mental link. We remember what we once were, but we cannot control our actions. Please destroy us before we are forced to kill more innocents. This created a terrible dilemma for the human forces. Every enemy they destroyed was also killing the enslaved beings inside, but leaving the ships intact meant allowing the Void Princes to continue using stolen souls as weapons. Captain Lee made the hardest decision of his life. We have to destroy them, he told his crew. It is the only way to free the enslaved minds and stop the enemy advance. The battle reached its peak when Prince Mordak himself entered the fight in his flagship Despair End. The ship was the size of a small moon and covered in weapons that fed directly on stellar energy from nearby stars. The flagship began draining power from the sun itself, causing solar flares that threatened to burn Earth atmosphere away. The Void Prince leader was willing to destroy the entire solar system to prevent humanity from rising again. Admiral Park So-min realized that conventional weapons would not work against Mordak flagship. The only way to stop him was for one of the human ships to ram the enemy vessel and destroy it from the inside. The Worldbreaker volunteered for the suicide mission. Commander Lee Hyun-seo and his crew of 10,000 awakened humans guided their ship directly toward the enemy flagship, while enemy weapons tore through their hull. "We go to join our ancestors," Commander Lee said over the fleet communication system as his ship began to break apart under enemy fire. "Tell Earth that we died free, and that humanity will never bow to tyrants again." The Worldbreaker impact with Despair End created an explosion that could be seen across the solar system. Both ships were destroyed instantly, but the blast damaged dozens of other enemy vessels and proved that the Void Princes were not invincible. Prince Mordak survived the destruction of his flagship, but his body was badly damaged and his connection to the enslaved minds in his fleet was disrupted. For the first time in the battle, the enemy formation began to show signs of confusion. Captain Lee saw the opportunity and ordered the Star Eater to target the command ships that controlled the enemy fleet. Without central coordination, the individual Void Prince vessels became vulnerable to human tactics. The Stormcaller used its speed to strike at damaged enemy ships, while the Star Eater main cannon picked off the largest targets one by one. The human forces were heavily outnumbered, but their awakened crews could coordinate perfectly through their mental links. Medical Officer Dr. Bae Sun-woo monitored the condition of the awakened humans during the battle and found that the intense combat was changing them even further. Their abilities were growing stronger, but they were also becoming less human with each passing hour. Some of the crew members were beginning to speak in languages that had been dead for millions of years, and their eyes now glowed so brightly that looking at them directly was painful. The awakening process was accelerating under the stress of battle. Navigation. Officer Kim So-young discovered that she could now sense enemy ships across multiple dimensions and predict their movements before they happened. The boundaries between her consciousness and the ship systems were disappearing completely. The battle lasted for 18 hours and left 3 star systems permanently damaged by the exotic weapons used by both sides. When it finally ended, the human forces had achieved a tactical victory, but at a terrible cost. Half of the awakened humans were dead, and the survivors were changed beyond recognition. They had gained incredible power but lost much of what made them human in the first place. The victory felt hollow when they counted the price they had paid. Prince Mordak retreated with the remnants of his fleet, but not before sending one final message to the human forces. "This is only the beginning," he said while his damaged form flickered on the communication screen. The alien leader continued, "You may have won this battle, but there are forces in the galaxy that make my fleet look like children playing with toys. The Shadow Syndicate stirs in the outer rim, and the final silence has taken notice of your return." He paused, then delivered his final warning. "Your awakening has sent ripples across the entire universe, and ancient things that should have remained sleeping are beginning to stir. You think you have problems now, but you have no idea what is coming." With that, Prince Mordak and his surviving ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the human forces alone with their victory and the terrifying knowledge that this was just the first of many battles to come. Captain Lee looked at his transformed crew and wondered if saving humanity was worth the cost of losing their humanity. The awakened humans were becoming something new and powerful. But they were also becoming something that might not care about the normal people they were supposed to protect. The first battle was over, but the war for the galaxy's survival was just beginning, and nobody knew what humanity would become before it ended. The attack came without warning during the night shift when most of Earth defenses were running on skeleton crews. Admiral Shin Kyung-soo was awakened by emergency alarms screaming through his command center. When he looked at the display screens, his blood turned cold. Enemy ships had appeared out of nowhere in Earth's solar system. They were not using normal space travel but seemed to step through reality itself like walking through doors. The ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, made of living metal that shifted and changed as they moved. "Sir, we have 30 enemy vessels and they are not responding to any communication attempts," his communications officer reported. "The ships appear to be scanning our defenses and they are moving toward Earth." Admiral Shin activated the planetary defense grid, but he knew it would not be enough. Human weapons had been designed to fight other humans, not alien technology that was millions of years advanced. The enemy ships moved through, space like sharks swimming through water, graceful and deadly. "Fire everything we have," Admiral Shin ordered, knowing it was probably useless. The human missiles and energy beams struck the alien ships but did no damage at all. The enemy vessels seemed to absorb the attacks and grow stronger from them. Their hulls rippled like liquid mercury and reformed instantly after each hit-on. The Star Eater. Captain Lee felt the battle through his enhanced senses. "The enemy is here," he told his crew, while his eyes glowed brighter. "They call themselves the Void Princes, and they have been waiting for this moment for millions of years." The Star Eater AI provided more information about their enemies. The Void Princes are ancient beings who feed on the life force of entire planets, it explained. They have ruled most of the galaxy since the fall of the human empire, and they will not allow humanity to rise again through the ship sensors. Captain Lee could see the lead enemy vessel. It was 3 times larger than any human battleship and covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The ship seemed to bend space around it, creating distortions that made it difficult to target communications. Officer Song Yuri managed to intercept an enemy transmission, and what she heard made everyone on the bridge go silent. The voice that came through was not entirely alien. There were words in ancient Korean mixed with sounds that no human throat could make. "Humans of the 3rd planet, you have awakened, something that should have remained sleeping forever." The voice was filled with hatred that had been growing for millions of years. "We are the Void Princes, and we remember your species' crimes against the galaxy captain." Lee ordered Song Yuri to open a channel. "Who are you and what do you want with Earth?" he demanded. The alien voice laughed, and the sound made the metal walls of the Star Eater vibrate. "I am Mordak the Eternal, and I have lived since before your son was born. I watched your ancestors spread across the galaxy like a disease, consuming everything in their path." The transmission continued. "Your species once claimed to be the guardians of all life, but you became tyrants who destroyed anyone who opposed your will. You created weapons that could unmake entire star systems and use them on civilizations that had never threatened you." Captain Lee felt memories stirring in his awakened mind. He could see flashes of the ancient war and the terrible weapons that humans had, built in their hunger for power. But he also saw the betrayal and the lies that had turned the galaxy against humanity. "You are lying," he said, even though part of him wondered if it was true. "I?" the alien voice replied. "Then why do your own memories show you the truth? Why can you see the worlds that burned under human weapons and the billions who died because your ancestors thought they had the right to rule everything?" Medical officer Dr. Bae Sunwoo was monitoring the awakened humans on the ship, and she noticed something disturbing. The enemy transmission was affecting them in strange ways. Some were becoming more aggressive, while others seemed to be in pain from recovered memories. The alien leader Mordak continued speaking. "Your ancestors made a terrible mistake. They forgot that power without restraint leads to destruction. They became so strong that they thought nothing could stop them. But we proved them wrong." Security. Chief Han Jae-sung accessed the ship's memory banks and found Records of the ancient war. The images were horrifying. Humans had indeed built weapons that could destroy stars, and they had used them against entire civilizations that opposed their expansion. But the records also showed that many of those civilizations had attacked human colonies first, and that the galaxy had been at war long before humans became involved. The situation was more complicated than either side wanted to admit. Mordak's transmission grew stronger as his ship moved closer to Earth, spent millions of years making sure that humanity would never rise again. We scattered your survivors across distant worlds and wiped their memories clean. We thought we had succeeded until yesterday when your ship awakened and sent its signal across the galaxy. The enemy leader paused, then continued with obvious pleasure. But it does not matter how powerful your ancient weapons are because we have spent all this time preparing for your return. We have technologies now that your ancestors never dreamed of, and we will use them to finish what we started. Captain Lee tried to learn more about the enemy forces, but the Star Eater sensors could only detect about half of the alien ships. The others seemed to exist partially in normal space, and partially somewhere else, making them nearly impossible to target. Weapons specialist Oh Sung-min reported that the Star Eater main cannon was ready to fire, but targeting the enemy ships was almost impossible. They keep phasing in and out of our dimension, he said. It is like trying to shoot shadows. The first real attack came when 3 enemy ships suddenly materialized around the human colony on Mars. The colonists had no warning and no defense. The alien weapons did not destroy the settlement. They drained it of life, leaving empty buildings and mummified corpses. Navigation officer Kim So-young monitored the attack through the ship's sensors, and what she saw made her sick. The enemy weapons were not just killing people. They were stealing their life force and using it to power their own systems. Mordak's voice came through the communication system again as images of the dead Mars colony appeared on every screen. See how efficiently we harvest your life energy, he said. Your colonists were weak and provided little sustenance, but Earth has billions of people who will feed us for centuries. Colonel Park Jun-ho and his awakened soldiers were preparing for battle, but they had no idea how to fight an enemy that could phase between dimensions. Their enhanced abilities were impressive against normal foes, but the Void Princes had technologies that seemed like magic. The Star Eater AI began sharing more information about the enemy. The Void Princes are not entirely biological, it explained. They have merged with machines and energy beings over millions of years until they became something that exists in multiple dimensions at once. Dr. Choi Ji-hae studied the alien ship designs and found something disturbing. Their hulls are made partially from the processed remains of conquered species, she reported. The living metal that forms their ships is actually composed of billions of absorbed consciousness from dead civilizations. This revelation explained why the enemy ships seemed to move with purpose and intelligence. They were not just machines, but vast collections of stolen minds and souls, all enslaved to serve the Void Princes. The situation became worse when long-range sensors detected more enemy fleets moving toward Earth from different directions. There were hundreds of ships, some larger than moons, all converging on humanity. Homeworld. But the most disturbing discovery came when Han Jae-sung accessed deeper records in the ship memory banks. He found evidence that the Void Princes were not entirely wrong about humanity. Ancient crimes. The first human empire had indeed become corrupt and aggressive in its final years. Captain Lee. We need to talk privately, Han Jae-sung said with a troubled expression. They went to the Captain Ready room where Han Jae-sung shared what he had learned. The records show that our ancestors did terrible things in the final years of their empire. He said, they destroyed civilizations that refused to join them and enslaved entire species to work in their factories. Captain Lee felt the weight of this knowledge, but he also knew it did not change their current situation. Whatever our ancestors did, we cannot let the Void Princes destroy Earth and kill billions of innocent people. The Star Eater AI had been listening to their conversation. The sins of the past do not justify genocide in the present. It said, your species has the chance to be better than your ancestors were, but first you must survive long enough to make that choice. As enemy ships continued to gather around Earth orbit, Admiral Shin sent desperate messages asking for help from the Star Eater. But Captain Lee knew that one ancient ship, even one as powerful as theirs, would not be enough to stop the entire Void Prince fleet. The AI revealed one final piece of information that changed everything. There are other ships like this one hidden across the galaxy. It said, ships that were built by humans who realized their empire was becoming corrupted. They hid these vessels hoping that someday their descendants would be wise enough to use them properly. Captain Lee looked at the approaching enemy fleet and made a decision. "We need to find those other ships," he said, "even if it means leaving Earth temporarily." But Mordak had anticipated this move. His voice came through the ship's communication system one more time. "You think there are other ancient weapons that can save?" Back on Earth, President Yoon Da-hee sat in her office reading Captain Lee report for the 10th time. The words seemed impossible, but the evidence was right there in front of her. Ancient human empire, star-destroying weapons, enemies coming to destroy. Earth, she called an emergency meeting with the world's best scientists. Dr. Lim Tae-hyun looked at the data from the Star Eater and shook his head. "Madam President," he said, "the energy readings from this ship are beyond anything we thought possible. If what Captain Lee is saying is true, then we need to take this very seriously." Professor Kim Hye-jin had been studying the symbols from the ship and comparing them to ancient ruins on Earth. "The match is perfect," she said while showing pictures on the big screen. "We have found similar symbols in caves in Korea, Japan, and China that are over 50,000 years old, but we never understood what they meant." Dr. Lim Tae-hyun pointed to his computer screen. "The ship AI has agreed to teach us how to use their technology. But it says that humans need to undergo something called an awakening process to operate the systems properly." "What does that mean?" President Yoon asked. "It means changing our brains and bodies to handle the ancient technology." Dr. Lim explained. "The process is dangerous and many people might die, but without it we cannot use the weapons we need to defend." Earth, meanwhile, on the Star Eater, Captain Lee and his team were learning things that should have been impossible. The ship AI was teaching them how to operate systems that worked through thoughts instead of buttons. Communications Officer Song Yuri discovered that she could control the ship navigation system just by thinking about where she wanted to go. "The ship can travel anywhere in the universe instantly," she told the others while her eyes glowed with a strange blue light. "All I have to do is picture the destination in my mind, and the ship will take us there." Weapons Specialist Oh Sung-min was learning about the ship weapon systems. "The main cannon can destroy an entire planet with one shot," he said with amazement. "But it requires a human mind to target it properly. The ship will not fire unless a human consciousness is guiding it." Medical Officer Dr. Bae Sun-woo was studying the healing chambers scattered throughout the ship. "These machines can cure any disease and even bring people back from the dead," she reported. "But they only work on humans with awakened DNA." The awakening process was painful and dangerous. Captain Lee had volunteered to go first and spent 3 days screaming in agony as his mind expanded to hold ancient memories. When he emerged, his eyes had changed color, and he could sense the emotions of everyone around him. "I can see things differently now," he told his crew while touching his temples. "I can feel the ship around me like it is part of my own body. And I have memories that are not mine. Memories of the old human empire." More volunteers arrived from Earth, led by Colonel Park Jun-ho and his Special Forces team. They had been briefed on the situation and knew the risks, but they were willing to undergo the awakening process to save their planet. The first attempts were disasters. Half of the volunteers died, screaming as their minds could not handle the flood of ancient knowledge. Others survived but came out changed in ways that scared everyone around them. Their eyes glowed with inner fire, and they spoke about the old wars like they had been there themselves. Sergeant Kim Min-seo was one of the successful candidates. When she emerged from the awakening chamber, she could move objects with her mind and see through solid walls. "I remember the Battle of Centauri Prime," she said, even though that battle happened millions of years before she was born. "I can see the enemy ships and feel the fear of our ancestors as their empire fell." The Star Eater AI explained what was happening to them. The awakening process unlocks the genetic memories stored in human DNA, it said. Every human carries the history of your species in their cells, but most never access it. The process we are using forces those memories to the surface. Dr. Choiji Haie studied the changed humans with fascination. Their brain activity is off the charts, she reported to Earth. They are using parts of their minds that normal humans cannot access. It is like they have become a different species as more humans underwent the awakening process. Strange things began happening on Earth. People reported having dreams about space battles and ancient cities. Those who lived near the old ruins started experiencing visions of the past. Some claimed they could hear voices speaking in languages that had been dead for millions of years. Professor Kim Hye-jin discovered that the ancient symbols were appearing in new places. Farmers found them carved into their fields overnight. Artists drew them without knowing why children played games that seemed to recreate ancient battle formations. The awakened humans on the Star Eater were becoming more powerful every day. Navigation Officer Kim So-young could now sense other ships across vast distances of space. Security Chief Han Jae-sung could phase through solid matter like a ghost communications. Officer Song Yuri could speak directly into people minds without using radio equipment. But the changes came with a terrible cost. The awakened humans were haunted by memories of the ancient war. They remembered the billions who died when the human empire fell and the betrayal that caused it all. Many of them became obsessed with revenge against the alien species who had destroyed their ancestors. Captain Lee tried to keep his crew focused on defending Earth, but it was becoming harder every day. The awakened humans wanted to find the descendants of the betrayer species and make them pay for what their ancestors had done. The Star Eater AI warned them about this danger. Power without wisdom destroyed the first human empire, it said. Your ancestors became so strong that they thought they could control the entire universe. They forgot that other species had the right to exist, and that led to the war that brought them down. Colonel Park Jun-ho was leading training exercises for the new awakened soldiers. They could fight with strength and speed that no normal human could match. A single awakened human could destroy an entire tank battalion with their bare hands. They could survive in the vacuum of space and regenerate from wounds that would kill anyone else. But President Yoon Da-hee was worried about reports from the training camps. Some of the awakened humans were becoming aggressive toward normal people. They claimed that non-awakened humans were inferior and should not be allowed to make decisions about the future of the species. We are creating a new type of human, she told Dr. Lim Tae-hyun. But what if they decide they do not need the old type anymore? Dr. Lim had been studying the psychological profiles of the awakened humans. The process changes more than just their abilities, he said. It gives them memories and emotions from millions of years ago. Some of them think they are the reincarnation of ancient human warriors. The situation became more complicated. When the Star Eater AI revealed that there were other hidden ships scattered across the galaxy, each ship required awakened humans to operate, but finding and activating them would alert more enemies to humanity location. We are in a race against time, the AI explained. Your enemies are already moving toward Earth, but if we can activate enough of the hidden fleet, we might be able to stop them. The problem is that each ship we awaken sends out a signal that can be detected across the galaxy. Captain Lee made the difficult decision to split his crew. Some would stay with the Star Eater to defend Earth while others would take smaller ships to search for the hidden fleet. It was dangerous, because the awakened humans were still learning to control their new abilities. Medical officer Dr. Bae Sun-woo discovered something disturbing about the awakening process. The changes are not just mental and physical, she reported to Captain Lee. The awakened humans are becoming something that is no longer entirely human. Their DNA is actually changing, and they might not be able to have children with normal humans anymore. This revelation caused panic among the awakened crew. Were they still human, or had they become something else entirely? The question became more urgent when long-range sensors detected the first enemy ships entering the solar system. The awakening had given humanity incredible power, but it had also created a divide between the enhanced and unenhanced humans. As the enemy fleet grew closer, everyone wondered if the cure for humanity weakness might be worse than the original problem. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Star Eater and watched Earth through the viewing screen. Somewhere down there, normal humans were going. about their daily lives, unaware that their entire species was about to change forever. The awakening process was spreading beyond the volunteers. People all over Earth were beginning to show signs of enhancement, even without going through the crystal chambers. It seemed that proximity to the awakened humans was triggering latent abilities in the general population. Soon there might not be any normal humans left, and nobody knew what that would mean for the future of their species. The only thing they knew for certain was that the enemy fleet was getting closer, and the final battle for Earth survival was about to begin. Captain Lee Dongwu stood on the bridge of his ship New Seoul and looked at the stars through the big window. The ship was flying through empty space between two galaxies where no one had ever been before. His crew had been exploring this dark area for 3 months, looking for new planets or anything interesting. Chief Engineer Park Min-ho ran to the bridge with his face full of excitement. "Captain, we are getting some very strange readings from the sensors," he said while pointing at his computer screen. "There is something very big out there, and it is giving off huge amounts of energy." Lee Dongwu looked at the screen and saw a dot that was much larger than their ship. "What do you think it is?" he asked. "Min-ho, I do not know, Captain, but it is not moving, and it does not look like any ship we have ever seen before." Min-ho replied, "The energy readings are off the charts. It is like looking at a small star navigation officer." Kim So-young turned around from her station. "Captain, the object is about 10 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. It appears to be made of some kind of metal, but my instruments cannot tell what kind." Dr. Choi Ji-hai, the ship xenobiologist, walked onto the bridge after hearing the commotion. "What are we looking at?" she asked while studying the readings on her tablet. "We found something," Captain Lee said. "It looks like a very old ship, but it is huge, and it has been floating here for who knows how long." Security Chief Han Jae-sung checked his weapons. "Systems, Captain, should we be worried about this thing? It could be dangerous." Lee Dongwu thought for a moment, then made his decision. "We are explorers, and this is why we came out here. Take us closer, but keep the shields up and weapons ready." As the New Seoul moved closer to the strange object, everyone on the bridge became quiet. The thing they were approaching was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was covered in symbols that seemed to move and change when no one was looking directly at them. The hull was black but had lines of blue light running through it like veins, Captain. "The air around that ship is breathable," Min-ho said while checking his sensors. "That should be impossible after floating in space for so long." Dr. Choi Ji-hai was studying the symbols on the ship hull. "These markings are not like anything in our database," she said. "They look almost familiar, but I cannot place them." Kim So-young was having problems with her navigation computer. "Captain, my instruments are acting very strange when I point them at that ship. It is like the ship is interfering with our systems." Han Jae-sung was nervous. "Captain, I recommend we stay back and study this thing from a safe distance. Something about it makes me feel uncomfortable." But Captain Lee was curious. "This could be the greatest discovery in human history," he said. "We have to go aboard and see what is inside. Prepare a boarding team." 20 minutes later, Captain Lee led a team of 6 people through the airlock and onto the mysterious ship. The corridors inside were huge and could fit 5 people walking side by side. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from inside the metal itself. Dr. Choi Ji-hai scanned the walls with her instruments. "These materials do not exist in any known periodic table," she whispered. "The atomic structure is completely different from anything we have ever seen." The team walked through corridor after corridor, and each one seemed to stretch on forever. The ship was so big that it felt like walking through a city rather than a spacecraft. There were rooms filled with strange machines that hummed with power, even though no one had been there for millions of years. Navigation Officer Kim So-young tried to map their route, but her instruments went crazy every few minutes. "Captain, I cannot get accurate readings inside this ship," she said. "It is like the ship is bigger on the inside than the outside." After walking for 2 hours, the team found a massive chamber at the center of the ship. The room was the size of a football stadium and filled with floating crystals that pulsed with inner light. The crystals were different colors, and each one was as big as a person. Security Chief Han Jae-sung looked at the crystals with wonder. "What are these things?" he asked while walking toward the nearest one. Dr. Choi Ji-hai quickly grabbed his arm. Do not touch anything until we know what it does, she warned, but Han Jae-sung was already reaching out toward a large, red crystal. The moment his fingers touched its surface, he screamed and fell to the ground. His eyes rolled back and his body started shaking. Captain Lee and the others rushed to help him, but Han Jae-sung was seeing things that were not there. He spoke in a voice that did not sound like his own. The old ones return, he said. The children of Earth remember their true nature. Images flooded into Han Jae-sung's mind, and he saw things that should have been impossible. He saw Earth millions of years ago when humans walked among the stars and ruled over entire galaxies. He saw great wars that destroyed whole solar systems and weapons that could crack planets in half. He saw humans who were not like the humans of today. These ancient people could move objects with their minds and travel between stars without ships. They built cities that floated in space and created technology that seemed like magic. But he also saw the great betrayal when other alien species turned against humanity because they feared human power. He watched as the human empire fell and the survivors were scattered across distant worlds with their memories wiped clean. The crystal showed him that this ship called the Star Eater was built as the ultimate weapon by the ancient humans. It was hidden away when their empire collapsed, waiting for the day when their descendants would be strong enough to use it again. When the visions ended, Han Jae-sung opened his eyes and looked at his teammates with a strange expression. Captain, he said in a shaky voice, we are not what we think we are. Humans once ruled the entire galaxy, and this ship belongs to us. Suddenly, the walls around them began to glow brighter, and a voice spoke in an ancient form of Korean that somehow everyone could understand. Welcome home, children of the Void Walkers. The voice said, I am the guardian of this vessel, and I have waited so long for your return. The artificial intelligence of the Star Eater continued to speak. Your species once commanded fleets that numbered in the millions and technology that could reshape reality itself. But you were betrayed and forgotten, cast down to crawl on a single world, while your enemies claimed what was rightfully yours. Captain Lee found his voice. What happened to the ancient humans, he asked. They became too powerful too quickly, the AI replied. Other species in the galaxy formed an alliance against them and used treachery to bring down the human empire. But the old ones knew this day would come. They built ships like this one and hid them across the galaxy, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to reclaim their birthright. Dr. Choi Ji-hai stepped forward. Are you saying that humans are descended from some kind of advanced alien species? You are not descended from aliens, the AI said with something that sounded like laughter. You are the aliens. The species you call human originated in this galaxy millions of years ago and spread across the stars long before most other civilizations even developed fire. The AI paused, then continued. But your awakening comes at a dangerous time. Your ancient enemies still live, and they have noticed the activation of this ship. They are already moving to destroy Earth before humanity can fully remember what they once were. Captain Lee felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? War is coming, the AI said. The same forces that destroyed the first human empire are gathering their fleets. Even now, they travel toward your homeworld with weapons designed to crack planets. You have perhaps days before they arrive. Kim So-young grabbed the captain's arm. We have to warn Earth, she said. Yes, the AI agreed. But warning them will not be enough. This ship must be fully awakened, and humanity must remember their true nature. Only then will you have the power to face what is coming. The crystal chamber began to pulse with brighter light, and more crystals started floating down from the ceiling. The AI spoke again. Touch the crystals and let them show you the truth about your species, but be warned, the awakening process is dangerous. Many will not survive the transformation. Captain Lee looked at his team and saw fear and excitement in their eyes. This could change everything, he said, or it could kill us all. But if what this AI is telling us is true, then we have no choice. He reached out toward the nearest crystal and felt electricity run through his fingers. The moment he touched it, his mind exploded with knowledge and power. and he understood for the first time what it truly meant to be human.